Good day, gentlemen. Dirk here with the MGTOW Solution. Starting this channel got me thinking about creativity because producing videos is itself a creative process. And I'm going to wrap up this video with a short instrumental song I wrote and recorded a while back, along with some visuals I've created to illustrate how MGTOW can unlock your creativity. It isn't just about avoiding divorce, rape, and surviving in a gynocentric world. It's also about creating the kind of life you want. Most people have some kind of creative drive, and as I'm sure you know, you have a lot more time to pursue those things when you're MGTOW. Far more than if you're married, where you're more likely to expend your creative energy trying to figure out how to make a woman happy, a project no one ever seems to finish. Creative pursuits usually get thrown out in a marriage because they're viewed as a waste of time by your controller. When you don't have that problem, your creativity can flourish. Different men have different interests, but most guys I know have something they're passionate about outside of work. This is because men are builders, and we take pleasure in stepping back at the completion of a project to view the results of our efforts. For me, this has always been mostly about photography and music. I talked a bit about this in the book. Those things are just hobbies, right? Not exactly. Yeah, I don't make any money at it, but that's not the point. Life shouldn't revolve entirely around making money, despite what you've been told. In my case, coaxing music out of a guitar or capturing a sunset have intrinsic rewards and don't require external validation or compensation. There's inherent value in creating something out of nothing, especially when it requires a level of skill. Da Vinci was once hired to paint a portrait of a woman. Legend has it that when he asked for his fee, she protested that it was far too high for 15 minutes of work. To which Da Vinci replied, "It didn't take me 15 minutes. It took me 15 years." But the process of improving one's skill in a given area can pay great dividends, even if you don't achieve greatness. When I was much younger, I didn't understand this. I figured if I couldn't play guitar at least as well as Eddie Van Halen, then I shouldn't play at all. Why bother? Being older and wiser now, I can laugh at my naive outlook. I don't have to be an expert at something in order for it to add value to my life. As long as I'm progressing, I'm on the right track. So now, I don't compare myself to world-class musicians. I just ask myself, am I better than I used to be? Or if it's a new skill, do I at least suck less? Man's need to create is built into our nature, regardless of what form that creativity takes. One of the guys at my work is a good example. One day he comes up to me out of the blue and shows me a knife. A pretty basic functional hunting knife. But he made it from scratch. He had developed an interest in this, and over the next couple of months he showed me several of his projects. Each one was better than the last, and at this point, those blades are nothing less than fucking works of art. They're awesome. I like this particular example because it illustrates that doing something like this requires a diverse skill set. He not only had to visualize what he wanted to create, but also had to develop some skills to create it. In this case, learning a bit about metallurgy. There's an intellectual component as well as a creative component, and this is the case in virtually everything men pursue, with the possible exception of pussy. Music is actually a good example because it's basically half creative process and half mathematical procedure. Accomplished musicians, especially composers, need a thorough understanding of music theory, acoustics, aural perception, and in many cases, audio engineering. I don't recall the study, but there was some research done that found musicians had improved neural connections between the right and left hemispheres in the brain. They had the ability to easily switch between creative and logical thinking, because music requires both. And they could do so to a much greater degree than the control group. So it would appear that the process of creating music actually improves brain function. Not only that, but playing an instrument requires the development of fine motor skills. When you think about it, most of men's creative interests require acquisition of some kind of knowledge and application of skills. I don't know anything about carpentry, but I know the guys that do have a lot of knowledge about tools, wood, geometry, and probably some other stuff I don't even understand. And I know that you can't even build a birdhouse without first developing some rudimentary skills. I also don't know shit about fishing, but I know that anglers have learned a lot about the different species, including their behavior, habitat, breeding, and feeding patterns. They also know a lot about boats and all the technical equipment and physical skills required for successful angling. I realize that most people wouldn't put fishing into the category of creativity, but it seems to me that the entire process of landing a fish requires quite a bit of it. History is full of creative men, and of course creative women as well. But the difference is that it has mostly been men who have channeled their creativity, along with their intellect, into making a better world. Men are the reason we're not all living in grass huts. All you have to do to confirm this is look at any modern invention and see if it was invented by a man or a woman. Women's biggest achievement is feminism, by far. Nothing else even comes close. And they would argue that this has made the world a better place. And maybe it has, for them. But not for society as a whole. Not for men. And not for children, as far as I'm concerned. And it hasn't benefited women who understand that men and women are different, and who maybe even respect and appreciate men's contributions. When women channel all of their creativity into devising new ways to take more from society, instead of ways to contribute, it's a net loss for the human race. And when it comes to figuring out how to advance their agenda, women have no problem tapping into their creativity. They just can't seem to do it otherwise. There's no shortage of ideas about how to best demonize men, because feminists can benefit from this, at least short term. The Me Too thing, for example. It seems that women prefer to apply most of their brain power and creative drive to figuring out how to best manipulate men, indoctrinate children, and recruit more women to their cause. They've been enormously successful in this, but it's all been driven by the self-serving question, how can I get what I want? The question, how can I contribute, doesn't seem to cross their minds very often. Meanwhile, who's figuring out nuclear fusion? Who's keeping the jihadists at bay? And who's developing the next iPhone? Men. And those are all things that benefit everyone, not just men. Sure, there's the occasional female artist or singer-songwriter coming out with something great, but in creative pursuits that have a significant intellectual component, men dominate the field. So it makes sense that even in recreational activities, men prefer things that require a bit of brain power and skill. When you're talking about men's creative interests, there's more to it than simply finding a way to amuse yourself or occupy your time. There are benefits to learning new skills, then applying those skills to accomplish something. You see this in every MGTOW video. Every one of them starts with an idea, then gets built up from there. Even when different men are talking about the same topic, the end product is completely different and reflects the personality of the creator. A lot of those videos demonstrate an extremely high level of creativity, but it's a little technical too, and men are generally good at technical stuff. As MGTOW, you can take all the time you used to waste on women and apply it to making your own life better. Build a fucking kayak if you want. Write a book. Restore some old furniture. Whatever interests you. Your average blue pill male doesn't have that luxury, but as a man going your own way, you do. Take advantage of that. Okay, if you want to hear this song, keep listening. It's not very long. I wrote it years ago. I wanted to do something different, something out of my comfort zone. Since I'm mostly into hard rock, that meant using other instruments beyond guitar, bass, and drums. There's a bunch of string sections and other stuff in there, and it's all coming out of a keyboard except the bass and guitars. There's a simple piano melody, but the whole thing inevitably leads to my preferred genre, rock. I was mostly a bass player at the time, but managed to pull off what I think is a half-decent guitar solo at the end. Here it is.